This is an incoming transmission from the Jersey Shore.
This is Financial Insanity with Scott McLean, powered by McLean Advisory Group. Today you'll hear some of the most important financial information and wealth-building techniques available anywhere.
Let's get this party started, huh?
Do you have a question for Scott and the team?
Am I on the air?
609-488-4646. That's 609-488-4646.
We'll get that information to them by radio.
Now, Financial Insanity with Scott McLean.
Don't count your chickens before they hatch. We've all heard that before. Maybe it was a grandparent, a parent. Maybe we're passing that on to our own kids and grandkids. And what does this mean for our finances? How do we keep from counting our chickens before they hatch in our nest egg? See what we did there? Pretty cute. Well, you're going to find out today. Scott McLean and Financial Insanity. Out-of-the-box thinking for your financial sanity. So, Scott, what do you think of when you hear don't count your chickens before they hatch as it applies to retirement income?
So not as it applies to my farm.
Yeah.
All right. So obviously you heard noise from our farm, but the neatest thing is, we all depend on income coming in when you're in retirement or nearing retirement. I had a phone call today from a couple that just moved to Green Cove Springs, Florida, and this couple is trying to plan the retirement. So counting your chickens before they hatch we definitely want to have a nice income. But what if something happens? What if you get sick and disabled what if you retire? What if you get fired? When we talk about Social Security, of course, are you thinking about, well, what if my spouse takes it first and I take mine later? Great option. But on the other side of the coin, when you're thinking about taking your Social Security, what if your spouse dies and you lose that option? So when you're planning for Social Security, Alex, the biggest challenge I find is they don't look at holistically I call it the three-legged stool: your Social Security, your current investments, and your retirement investments, or maybe your pension. And you must really delve into questions like that when you're planning your retirement, because you're trying to count your chickens before they hatch. But what if something happens? So you need to ask a lot of different variables. I think this is very, very important, Alex.
Absolutely. And Scott, when we're talking specifically about Social Security and now not counting your chickens before they hatch, the easy thing to think about is the cost of living adjustment. And this is made each year. And I hear you laughing. And
It's going up.
Yeah. Well, we got an estimate from the Senior Citizens League. And no, that's not, the softball league or anything. But there could be a 9.6% increase in Social Security payments next year. But we don't want to just assume that and make plans based on that, right, Scott?
No, I would run the numbers just for giggles. I would really think about 7 to 9%. Now they're saying about 8.7 or perhaps 9. So again, counting the chickens for the hatch. Just be glad they have Social Security. Be glad that if you're taking it now, you're getting Social Security. But use that in your numbers if you want. Just use a quick thing. Maybe an extra average is about an extra $150 plus or minus the $10. It's about $150 is the average.
Well, and there's still a lot of data to be collected, and before that official COLA is announced, so that could all go down. And as far as counting on Social Security for income, I mean, how much should we be counting on that as we move forward?
Well, you need to really, if you're listening right now, grab yourself a pen, paper, or pencil. If you simply go to Social Security, you need to know your numbers. I could throw all sorts of numbers out there, but that'd be like a doctor giving you a prescription for a ailment you don't have. But I think the first part is to really go to socialsecurity.gov, and it's called My Account. You can actually log in if you haven't done it before and watch your numbers, watch your income. They could be wrong. My Social Security. Go Google that, download the information. You can get your report right away. And I think this is very important for those of you that are divorced. And maybe you should take your husband's or your wife's, or I should say your significant other, prior significant other, take their Social Security. So should you or shouldn't you take their Social Security and let yours be delayed? This is very important. This report, go to mysocialsecurity.gov. I think it's called socialsecurity.gov and then my account. Download that report. If you can't get your report, you need to call Social Security. You need that report before you start counting your chickens, as we spoke about, because you could be way off. Your report could be wrong. Very important.
If you have questions, Scott may have answers for you. You can reach Scott and his team, 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646. Another area here where this lesson comes into play on how your retirement income is going to be taxed. Don't want to necessarily look at account balances and assume that's the amount we get to spend in retirement. Tell us, Scott, taxes, the impact that's going to have on retirement.
Alex, this is so important if you're listening right now, why your advisor should be looking at your tax returns or asking you questions on an annual basis. Why? Because one year your Social Security may not be taxed at all because of the marginal tax bracket. And the Social Security could be totally tax-free, and then all of a sudden you hit a wonderful age, let's say 72, you've received tax-free Social Security, and now because you're taking your required minimum distributions from your investments, it's now taxed up to, drum roll please, that's right, 85%. 85% it can be taxed up to. This is why the tax returns is critical to look at when you're planning heading into retirement or while you're in retirement. And this is not an Einstein deal. It's very simple, especially if your advisor's been doing it for years. I'm sure a tax preparer has been doing taxes for years, but their job is not to guide you. Their job is to do the taxes. This is where your financial advisor, preferably a fiduciary that's looking for your best interest. If you're not, you're looking in the wrong neighborhood. And for those do-it-yourselfers, you need to pay attention to Social Security and how it's taxed. Now, to put the whole picture together, like you said, Alex, you've got your 401k, 403b, perhaps you have a 457. Maybe you have a defined contribution plan. How is that taxed? That's called ordinary income. So when you're pulling money out of those vehicles, perhaps you have other vehicles, let's say a non-qualified account, a joint account, maybe money you've been saving on the side. When you design your retirement for efficiency, tax efficiency, as well as less taxation. Perhaps your spouse's lights are going dim. Which account should you use? Perhaps your spouse is now disabled and you're pulling money to pay for a in-home nursing. You see, Alex, how many choices there are. So I'm talking on the radio to you listeners right now. I'm speaking to you because you have choices to make, and everybody is not cookie cutter. I hate financial planning shows where they give you what to do, but everybody's not the same. You know, if you want some ideas or some thoughts or some concerns, please don't put this off, because when you make a choice for Social Security, when you turn on your pension plan and make choices for pension, when you start pulling money out of your accounts, which account do you pull it out from? This is why it's important. Write this down. This is, please do yourself a favor. Write this down. Ready? 609-488-4646. Write this down. 609-488-4646, because I'll be able to help guide you. You give me a call off the air at our radio station here, 609-488-4646, because you might have questions, and I guarantee you I will have answers. Why do I say guarantee? Because if I don't, I'll find them out for you. How's that? Or I'll lead you to someone who can, because this is something you're making a decision to retire. You look at all your investment accounts and how, where, how much do you pull out of your accounts so you can minimize taxes.
Well,
Good question.
And Scott, the whole topic today, talking about not counting chickens before they hatch, is all about not making assumptions, not assuming you're going to be okay or that you're going to be, not okay. And
You're right.
And this is where, Scott, bringing in a professional, whether it's a first or a second or a third opinion, but just that you
Right.
don't want to make these assumptions. And you alluded to it, but there's just so many details and so many codes and so many rules and tax rates change all the time. And how do you stay ahead of these things? And so you're not just being reactive. And these are all things that you can either think about or you can invest some time with someone to think about that for you.
Well, Alex, you said the word reactive, and I think that's a very powerful question because most of us are reactive. It's like I want to go get something in the store. You go to McDonald's, you buy food that's maybe not that healthy for you. You're reactively going to fill your hanger tank. Or I think my daughter calls me sometimes when I don't eat. You want to make a quick answer, but that quick answer could cause more ailments, more challenges, more problems. So you want to be proactive, not reactive. And this is a big point, counting your chickens before they hatch. Well, things do change. So you could plan now, but maybe later on in life, another 2 or 3 months, all of a sudden, I'll give you a case in point that your child has taken sick. And I'm not being doom and gloomer here early in the morning, but your child has taken sick and perhaps maybe now you have to take care of the grandkids. Maybe now your retirement has changed. Maybe now you are putting the grandkids, and now you're raising the grandkids. I know I have several clients like this. They're about to retire and all of a sudden now they become, I should say parents, but now they're grandparents. But now the tax return changed because now they have some different exemptions. This is not a set it and forget it deal. This is not a deal where your advisor meets with you one time and over the phone or on Zoom or in person and you're done. This is a plan that's fluid. Alex, we spoke in one of our shows about a financial plan. Anytime you put a financial plan is, to me, ridiculous if it's for your life, because it's not stagnant. It's for that point in time and then that's set. But things change. So a financial plan, you pay a financial planner to put a plan together. And today the plan looks wonderful, but 6 months down the line, the plan has changed. You pay all that money, but life has changed. This is why I think it's crazy to put a financial plan and put a period at the end of that word financial plan, because it is a moving target. Life is a moving target, as we all know.
Scott, if someone's sitting there, they have questions about Social Security, or they have questions about taxes in retirement, or how to generate retirement income, or if they just simply think, you know what, I've had one person looking at my stuff, maybe I need a second person, a second set of eyes. What should folks out there do?
That makes sense to get a second set of eyes, whether it's with our firm here at McLean Advisory in Waretown, New Jersey, which we've been doing, a proud supporter of WBNJ for so many years because we're able to educate people. But get someone who can take a look at your stuff holistically, which is why I said in the beginning of the show, go to your Social Security, SSA.gov, download your Social Security report. Then, of course, when you meet with a second opinion or third opinion, or obviously you'll give us a call at our studio, 609-488-4646, to help guide you through these many decisions you're making that you think it's a simple decision, but simplicity, I call it the disease of ease. It seems simple, but it could not be simple. So this is important to give us a call if we can help you off the air at our station here for any kind of questions you might have. Would love to help you as we've been doing now for 41 years, I guess now, Alex.
Scott welcomes you to try that number. Also, if you would rather go to the website, it is simply the phone number with .com at the end. So 609-488-4646.com.
How simple is that?
Pretty darn easy. And you are listening to Financial Insanity, out of the box thinking for your financial sanity. More with Scott coming up.
Scott McLean at McLean Advisory Group often talks about the difference between retirement savings and retirement income. It isn't necessarily how much money you have saved that's most important. It's having a steady stream of income in retirement no matter how long you live. Scott has strategies that can help you create consistent monthly income for the rest of your life. He can help you make important decisions today so you can have the income you need in retirement. Having a big nest egg is great, but how will it provide you with the income you need for as long as you live? The number to get more information from Scott at McLean Advisory Group is 609-488-4646. That's 609-488-4646. 4646. Turn your portfolio into a plan with help from Scott McLean. 609-488-4646. Investing involves risk. Firm offers insurance services. Investment advisory services are offered through Bell Point Asset Management, LLC.
Scott speaks about savings down by the seashore.
Oh, man, that's great. That's great.
Back to Financial Insanity with Scott McLean and co-host Alex Dingman.
I haven't seen my son in 15 years. I don't want to leave anything for him in my last will and testament. Or my daughter just married a person who's a drug addict. I don't want to leave her anything in my will. I gave my son thousands of dollars and he never paid back a dime of this loan. Or my son already received his inheritance. I don't want to leave anything more for him in my will. Just a few examples of why a parent may want to disinherit a child. Today, we are joined by Dave Connolly, attorney for over 40 years and a good friend of Scott's. Been working with Scott since 1984. You can reach Dave at the office, 609-488-4646. But Scott, this is a great opportunity for Dave to come on here and talk about a topic that's maybe a little uncomfortable, but important.
Alex, it is uncomfortable because when I work with people, as you know, I talk about their estate. We can handle the money. We've been doing this thing now over 40 years. But that's just one part of the big picture. What happens if they die? Well, that's another part. But what happens if their children are going to inherit money? And maybe, as you noted at the beginning, there's a challenge. There's a problem. And maybe they don't want their children to get the money because of, as you said, the spouse. Maybe because the child is on the wrong side of the street. Maybe the child's going to be disinherited. They just fell away from the family. Some reason. We're not going to go into reasons. Everybody knows that listening to the show right now. But the reason I wanted to do this show, and Alex, I'm so glad that we spoke about this when Dave came to me and says, Scotty, this is a problem I've noticed. And Dave made it so prevalent to me, saying, this needs to get to your people. Dave writes tons of articles for our clients, our friends, and of course, he's been in the practice now working at the firm at Elizabeth Appello, and knowing her for many, many years, and we talk about estate planning. So Dave said, Scott, you've got to bring this topic up. So Alex, I'm glad you want to talk about that. I think, Dave, obviously you're live with us in color, and you're here on the show at WBNJ, as we're a proud supporter on the radio show. And we've got a lot of problems. Alex, go ahead and what kind of questions you got for us, Alex?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Dave, this is the kind of thing where you really got to take the emotion out. You got people who have been working their whole lives, have the kind of money that they do, and now it's time to start thinking about legacy. For some people, it might be as easy as a 50-50 split for inheritance. But Dave, like you know, a lot of times you got to use your brain and determine what is the best trajectory for your family moving forward. And that's where you can step in and give advice, right, Dave?
Absolutely. There's a lot of times that the person making a will, a testator, is not getting along with the child, hasn't seen the child for 20, 30, 40 years, and wants to cut him out. But there's other times when, for purposes of financial planning, they are eliminating the child from the will because the child's on government assistance, the child's special needs. Well, you don't want to give that child any additional funds because that will cut off the special needs or the entitlement program. So there's a lot that has to be done. Unfortunately, a lot of the clients, not in Scott's office, Scott prepares them pretty good, but I've seen other clients that just don't tell me they have another child that they want to disinherit. They figure that as long as they don't mention a child in a will, he's disinherited. That ain't so. There's a procedure you have to follow, and if you don't follow it correctly, you could undo what you're trying to do.
Now, Dave, you made a statement in our office, and obviously, you know, we ask our clients lots of questions, but we don't know. Sometimes people don't want to bring up, I say, the dirty underwear in the family. They don't want to talk about these things, which is so important because they've worked so hard during their lives. They've built up this huge estate, and huge to some people could be 100,000. Huge to other people could be 10 million. We've got clients of all different sizes. But the question of the matter is, in disinheriting them, what's the proper way? And obviously it's called probate, and probate has a way of ripping people apart. I say in my book on chapter 11, the crows and the clowns show up at the funeral. And I think this is one of the challenges that come about. So Dave, what should someone really pay attention to, because I guess you got wills out there, Dave, and maybe trusts that people haven't updated. So I guess the first question I'm thinking about is, how often should people review their will? I mean, we do that every year. We ask questions to our clients, but from a lawyer perspective, I think you can understand maybe lawyers just cut the will and they forget about it. What's the process that they should follow?
The person should at least review the will every year or two to make sure that all the circumstances that were the basis for the will are still the same. Most people think that a child has no right to inherit. That's not true. The law states that if you die without a will, the children and spouse, if there is a spouse, will divide your estate. So there is a right for a children to have part of the decedent's estate, but the law also says that the decedent can disinherit the child. So you do nothing, the child that you haven't seen in 35 years will inherit like the child who has taken care of you all your life. You do a will properly, you can disinherit that person that has left your life 35 years ago. In my opinion, the proper way, disinheriting a child, very simple statement. I hereby leave nothing to my daughter, Mary Jones, for reasons that are both known to myself and Mary. Don't give a reason why. If you give a reason why in the will, I am not going to give my daughter anything. I'm disinheriting her because she hasn't visited me in 5 years. Well, now you've given a basis for Mary Jones to contest the will because I am disinheriting, and then your supporting evidence will be done outside the will. What type of supporting evidence? I tell my clients, if you're going to disinherit anybody in the will, sit down and write your reasons out on a piece of paper. Let that paper be kept with the will. If the will gets contested, you have strong evidence of the intent to disinherit a beneficiary, a child. If it doesn't get contested, it gets thrown away and nobody gets hurt. I would even go so far as to say it might be good to video it.
It's great advice. Listen, audience, I'd like you to be aware, even though this is a financial show, this is a financial matter. We talk about the three blind mice, your accountant, your lawyer, your financial advisor. This is why the crows and the clowns show up at the funeral, because they don't talk to each other, and they kind of leave a piece of your assets completely out, or a piece of your desires. And I think this is important for those of you listening right now. I can tell you right now, if you need to get a hold of Dave, feel free to give our studios a call. You can call our studios at 609-488-4646. We can make a way to, if you speak to Dave, no cost, feel free to ask Dave, because you know what? When it comes to your finances, we at Financial Advisory Group in Waretown, New Jersey, doing this now 40 plus years, we see lots of discussions and we like to bring them up. And a lot of times it's not brought up. So Dave's given you some great advice, and you definitely want to heed this advice. But the biggest thing I've noticed, Alex, I think you've noticed, you can get all the advice in the world, but if you don't apply it, it's not going to be beneficial. You can have the smartest person in the world, but they still could be not taking the right path. Alex, any other questions? What do you got for Dave?
Absolutely, Scott, and not to stroke your ego or anything, but you are a smart guy, but you also know we need to bring in other smart people. And after 40 years, you've formed some great relationships, and that can be part of your value. Dave Connolly has been practicing law for over 40 years, specializing in real estate law, wills, estates, trusts, probate, powers of attorney, and other things before retiring a few years ago. Great person to have on your team. And we're here today looking at this topic on financial insanity with Scott McLean, McLean Tax Advisory Group. Attorney Dave Connolly gracing us with his presence. And some people, Dave, thinks it's sufficient to simply state in their last will and testament that they are disinheriting their child. But I know sometimes it's about the order things are done, and some documents take precedence over others. And that's why it's just so important to talk to someone who knows what they are doing before you just assume you have everything set in place correctly. Right, Dave?
You're absolutely right. Some people, when I talk to them, they say, well, leave them $1. That's all I want to leave it. The worst thing you could do, because now you have made them part of the beneficiary pool, and that person will have to sign a refunding bond and release, albeit only for $1, but also has a right to get an accounting to participate in the whole process. And you don't want to. You want to keep that person out who is being disinherited.
It could cause
so don't leave anything to that person.
Absolutely. That could cause mayhem to come right out of the clue just from a simple clause in the paperwork.
$1.
Wow.
Well, and you also don't want to create a situation where there's going to be ongoing legal battles between family members because you didn't clearly state something that you were wanting, or maybe things were conflicting each other in documents. So now, instead of creating this nice legacy for your family, your legacy is creating this huge headache for your family members to deal with.
The evidence before the court, if there's ever a will contest, is the testator's dictation of why they cut the person out. And the more evidence you have there, the cleaner the case is for the executor to eliminate the disinherited child. So I can't overemphasize that is important to keep with the will. Hopefully it doesn't get contested, but if it does, you want to be prepared so you're not running around trying to keep the disinherited person out when you don't have the evidence.
You know, and you're looking for an attorney. When Dave mentioned you probably want to review your documents every year or 2 years. What we do at our firm is we actually ask our clients on the annual review or speaking to them once a year, has anything changed? You mean you might have a child out there that's disinherited. That's the negative part of the show, but it's real. This is real stuff. But then you might have a child that became disabled and maybe they inherit money, but they're disabled, they're getting government subsidies, and they could lose the entire subsidy because the mom and dad pass away. It goes to the child, and they're getting some Social Security disability. They're getting some kind of benefits. I know we haven't spoken about that, Dave, but they should probably update their beneficiaries and maybe point their assets to a trust for that child that's disabled or incompetent, or there's a challenge going on.
Absolutely.
If you need that help, I think I can tell you one thing. The time you spend, if you want to give Dave a call at our studios, 609-488-4646. He'll answer your questions, no cost, no obligation. The biggest challenge I find is you get this great information here in the beautiful, lovely days we're having, and all of a sudden, you forget and you put this aside. This is something you shouldn't. My goodness, you would destroy your crows and the clowns showing up. Well, you've invited them in by not taking care of the details to your estate. It's not just about investing monies, which our firm does. It's about looking at the full picture.
Thank you for that note. And there are an infinite number of reasons why a parent may want to disinherit their child. We have more Financial Insanity with Scott McLean and Dave Connolly coming up.
Scott McLean at McLean Advisory Group often talks about the difference between retirement savings and retirement income. It isn't necessarily how much money you have saved that's most important. It's having a steady stream of income in retirement no matter how long you live. Scott has strategies that can help you create consistent monthly income for the rest of your life. He can help you make important decisions today so you can have the income you need in retirement. Having a big nest egg is great, but how will it provide you with the income you need for as long as you live? The number to get more information from Scott at McLean Advisory Group is 609-488-4646. That's 609-488-4646. Turn your portfolio into a plan with help from Scott McLean. 609-488-4646. Investing involves risk. Firm offers insurance services. Investment advisory services are offered through Bell Point Asset Management, LLC.
Why doesn't Sherlock Holmes pay a lot in taxes? Because he makes brilliant deductions. Welcome back to Financial Insanity, brought to you by McLean Advisory Group.
There are an infinite number of reasons why a parent may want to disinherit their child. Financial Insanity with Scott McLean. Special guest today, attorney Dave Connolly, longtime friend and also business partner of Scott's. Dave has over 40 years experience as an attorney in the area. And today, talking about a very important, maybe somewhat touchy, uncomfortable topic, but that's where we come in. for these conversations, and we can have those uncomfortable conversations with you. So talking about this today, and Scott, Dave, some reasons now why this might be something someone may want to look to do as far as disinheriting their child.
You know, Alex, this is really a touchy area. You know, being in the industry now for many years, and I can tell you countless times I've called Dave and asked him about questions, and other attorneys that draft the documents. They draft the documents, but they never really look at them again. They draft the documents, and here it is 10 years later, and Scott McLean or one of our advisors here at our firm dusts them off. They blow off the dust and they read the contracts. I can tell you many times I'll call Dave, or I'll even call the attorneys they're using. They need to update them. If you out there are listening and you haven't dusted it off and read through it, I can tell you so many problems I've noticed. Let me give you a couple ideas I've noticed. Number one, maybe the executor, maybe your son or daughter, became disabled and they can't handle it, and there's no backup. Maybe they passed away and there's no backup. Maybe the backup to the executor, maybe it's your wife or your husband, your spouse, well, either one. And of course, maybe it's the child, and maybe that child has gone off the railroad tracks. You know what I mean? They've gone a different path and they're now disinherited. Maybe they married some lovely person that ended up being a wolf in sheep's clothing, and now they don't contact you anymore. This is very vital when it comes to designating beneficiaries on your bank accounts, savings accounts, IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, and maybe you haven't updated them. Or maybe those of you out there that maybe have a second marriage and maybe you didn't update the beneficiaries. This is the financial, as far as I'm concerned, this is where the financial advisor should be asking these questions. And then I can tell you, in my practice, chapter 11 in the book, I can tell you so many times people don't look at it. Now, Dave, this is Dave, a close friend of mine for now 40 plus years. I think we're still friends, but either way, I love his family. But I can tell you, as a sharp attorney and knowing his craft very well, and you've seen problems like this too, Dave. You've seen a lot of these wills that have been outdated. Dave, what's the reason people are not updating their documents?
I've seen worse than that, Scott. Years ago when I used to have a safe deposit box for all the wills, and I used to do that as a courtesy to the people. I used to maintain the will in my safe deposit box. I would, as the people would execute the will, give me the will to hold on to it, and I never seen them again. Wow. So why people aren't on top of their game, especially with such an important document, I don't know. Things change. You have children, they're growing up, you need a guardian for them. Now they're over 21. Of your 3 kids, one of them is a drug addict. Well, you're going to treat him different for his own benefit than equally with the others. Just give him the money if something happens, give him 1/3, because that money's not going to go to good purposes. So things change. You have to review the will occasionally, every 1, 2, 3 years. And if they have changed, you have to change your documents accordingly.
Dave, I get what you're saying is all of a sudden the child gets along with mom and dad, and 10 years later, the child's doing things they ought not do, drinking, drugs. Absolutely. Maybe they married someone that's pulled them aside. Maybe they want to put money. Maybe this is a good discussion for some of you listening out there to open up a trust. Maybe they have a special needs child and they need a special needs trust. Or maybe they have a child that if they receive $1, they know, and you know, they'll probably spend 2. So maybe there needs to be some kind of spendthrift trust. So there's all types of trusts out there. Is that right, Dave?
Yeah, you have irrevocable trust. You got revocable trust. That means that one you can change, one you cannot change. Living trust, testamentary trust, the Medicaid Asset Protection Trust. There's so many different types of trusts out there.
Yeah, that is a hard decision. If you're not dealing with the right person, the right people, I can tell you that could cause a problem. Alex, you have, I think you had a question for me, and we didn't bring it up. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good, and lots to think about, and that's why if you have questions, the office number, 609-488-4646. Scott McLean, along with Dave Connolly, attorney in the area for over 40 years. Those two have been working together since 1984 and can still stand each other after all this time. And that speaks to something right there in itself.
I don't know if I go that far.
One thing here is a question asked sometimes, might sound a little weird, but life is weird. A parent using the threat of disinheritance to influence a child's behavior. In other words, a parent really wants to change a child's behavior by controlling his or her estate distribution. So is it legal for a parent to say, for example, if my daughter marries that man, I will disinherit her? Is that legal?
No, that's not legal. You can put incentives. If you stop drinking, I'll give you a full 1/3 share. But it's not legal to say if you marry, I want you to marry him or not him. Now you're getting into a gray area that's approaching illegal. I wouldn't put that in a will.
Because that's the kind of thing that people might be using emotion, not their brain. And that's where you can come in. Because the other thing is, and I think we mentioned it briefly earlier, but a court might look at something and say a person was accidentally disinherited because he didn't make it super clear. So that just speaks to, hey, don't take it by chance that you got this done correctly. Speak with someone, at least get some advice. Have them look your documents over so you know what's going on.
Absolutely.
What are some other important things, Dave, to think about? We're in this stage of life. We're compiling these planning documents. What are some other things when it comes to inheritance, when it comes to our children, that we should be contemplating?
Well, you got to figure if you, when you pass and that inheritance goes to the child, it's their money. They can do with it whatever they want. If their parent is having any trouble with the son-in-law or daughter-in-law, I would caution them that they might want to put the money in a trust to prevent son-in-law or daughter-in-law from having access to the money. I would also tell my children that when they inherit the inheritance, if they keep it separate and apart, they don't commingle it with the family assets, it does not become part of the family assets if there's a divorce, and the child can keep it exclusive of the spouse. So as I talk to the people and spend some time with them and get the feeling for, and they start opening up after 10, 15 minutes.
That's right.
About their real feelings, then I can play it by ear and direct them to where I think they should be thinking.
You know, Dave, you're bringing up a thought to pattern to me. Let's say you have two children and they have spouses and they have children. So let's say you will have your son, and your son has two children, and your daughter, she has two children. Here's what I find a lot of times a mistake. Maybe for some reason or another, bringing in what Alex said, maybe you don't like their spouses. Obviously, you like them, you have to put up with them, but you keep that silent. But the other part is, what if your son or daughter passes away? They're going to be receiving your inheritance. You want the inheritance to go to the grandchildren, your grandchildren, which is fine. The question is, who's going to be the trustee, assuming the grandchildren are underage? Who's going to be the trustee? And what I'm understanding is, if you don't have a specific clause, I would think that the spouse that you kind of don't like that much will be the one overseeing the money, unless you make it clear we need to have a backup quarterback. We need to have someone else to oversee the money, and a trust needs to be established within that will. Davis, can you clarify that, what I'm kind of trying to get to?
You're right. The spouse is the guardian of the children, so unless something is specifically stated in the last will and testament, any monies that go to minor children, number one, would be deposited with the surrogate court until a child is 18, and the guardian, the parent, would have the ability to request from the court any funds that are needed during the time that the child's a minor. Rather than going through all that, it's easier to establish a trust in the last will and testament. 18, I think, is too young for a person to get a substantial amount of money. So I usually recommend minimum 21, probably 25, and the trust funds are there for the health, maintenance, education, and well-being of the child. But the trustee, who is appointed by the parent, the trustee will decide what is an applicable expense for the child. So in the case you had, Scott, Typically, it would be the surviving child. You got a son and a daughter. You would make each reciprocal trustees for a trust for their children.
Yeah, that's important. I can tell you so many times when I meet with people, I say, I know you love your daughter's spouse or your son's spouse. Let's say they love them. But the question is now the second problem is they get remarried to someone else who has kids, and now they could be commingling the money that they receive from mom and dad when they die. And they want it specifically for their grandchildren, grandma, grandpa, specifically to pass to the bloodline. And this is a mistake. And I ask these questions because I always ask people, Dave, this question. By the way, do you like your son-in-law, your daughter-in-law? Oh, yeah, I love them to death. So if they got married again and you received an inheritance, would you want them, their new spouses, and their new family, the Brady Bunch, to enjoy your money, or just your kids? And 9 times out of 10, I want to protect it for my blood, my grandkids. And so, and Dave, by the way, for those audience listening, it happened to me. As Dave knows, we have a daughter who is now about 45 years old. We got her when she was 8, when her mom died and her dad chose not to take care of her. I have been through this road. Dave has seen a bunch of issues, and I can tell you the reason we're bringing this up on our show, the crows and the clowns show up at the funeral. Have you protected your estate? Not just making sure your money's invested correctly, which is what we do. We do a tremendous, great job. But the secondary is what happens if something happens and you pass on. And so I want to thank Dave for being, if you're listening, please do yourself a favor. Give our studios a call and ask for Dave. Ask your questions. Don't let this sit on your shoulders, because one great idea could change everything if you apply it. Everybody says people are smart, they're great. Well, you could be as smart as the world, but if you don't apply it, you're dumb as rocks. It's applied knowledge that keeps you really, really in sync with your estate, as we're talking about today. Alex?
And Scott, you just got to be humble enough to admit that maybe you need some other eyes on it. You need some help, just like you have over these years, Scott, realizing that you can help people in a lot of different ways. But if you bring on experts who maybe know more than you do about certain topics, and in this case, that being Dave Connolly, and that's where the value really adds to what you provide, because you're saying, hey, I know a lot here, but this person knows even more in this regard. So I'm going to partner with this person, and it really just makes you more valuable to the community as well. So really great conversation today, Dave. Appreciate you coming on and talking about this very important topic with us.
Thanks, Davey. I appreciate your time with us, and I hope those people listening take action. Don't put this aside. I can't stress this more enough, because life changes in a flicker, and you have great ideas and great intentions, but intentions are led to nowhere unless you apply the knowledge you've gained and the wisdom and insight from Dave himself and from the time we spent together. So if you'd like a copy of Disinheriting a Child in a Will, feel free to give our studios a call. We'll make it available to you, as well as if you'd like Chapter 11 of my book, The Three Blind Mice. I'd love to get that in your hands. No cost, no obligation for anybody out there. We can make a way to get it to you. I can tell you the time and the effort you put into reading it will really help solidify, are you doing or not doing the right thing? And you can bring it to your attorney and ask them for help. If you got an attorney, these are things that should be brought up, not with just Dave, anybody, but don't put this on the shelf. Thanks, guys.
My pleasure. Nice talking to you.
You can reach the studios if you want more information, 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646, and more financial insanity with Scott McLean coming up.
Scott McLean at McLean Advisory Group often talks about the difference between retirement savings and retirement income. It isn't necessarily how much money you have saved that's most important. It's having a steady stream of income in retirement no matter how long you live. Scott has strategies that can help you create consistent monthly income for the rest of your life. He can help you make important decisions today so you can have the income you need in retirement. Having a big nest egg is great, but how will it provide you with the income you need for as long as you live? The number to get more information from Scott at McLean Advisory Group is 609-488-4646. 4646. That's 609 488 4646. Turn your portfolio into a plan with help from Scott McLean. 609 488 4646. Investing involves risk. Firm offers insurance services. Investment advisory services are offered through Bell Point Asset Management, LLC.
Financial wisdom grown locally here on the Jersey Shore.
You think I'm an idiot?
This is Financial Insanity with Scott McLean, brought to you by McLean Advisory Group.
There are some words of wisdom that have stood the test of time, and now we'll share some timeless advice for you to keep in mind for your retirement. Scott, I'm going to give you a quote, and I want you to talk about what that has to do with retirement planning. First quote is from Ben Franklin.
Old Ben.
Old Ben. A penny saved is a penny earned. What do you think about that one as far as retirement's concerned?
I think everybody knows that one, but I think as I tell my family, I'll do today when we're younger. I tell this to all young people, do today what others won't do so you'll have what others won't have later in life. I think that's important. A penny saved is a penny earned because it's hard to save money. You're raising kids. You're crying and maybe at nights for those self-employed people listening to the show right now, you're seeing the thing go up in price and the cost expensive, and you still got to save for that retirement. If you're heading into retirement, you still got to put money away, and a penny saved is a penny earned. That's right, because you're paying the price now so you don't have to pay the price later. I think it's so important to save money, to put it away, and put it away in the right place. That's important.
Let's go ahead and keep it with Ben Franklin. He was a pretty smart guy, by the way. So he had another quote here, and tell me what this means to you, Scott. Wealth is not his that has it, but his that enjoys it.
Wow, that's a big statement. And wealth is not his that has it. Well, you know what? Nothing's ours as far as I'm concerned. We've been blessed from above. And when we're blessed from above, the question is, what are we doing with this wealth we've been given? Or maybe little money. Some people listening right now, Scott, I don't have a lot of wealth. Well, enjoy your life. Enjoyment is different for everybody. Enjoyment comes from the heart. And of course, if you have more money, you could, of course, enjoy it with others. But it's not about the money. It's about the time you spend. It's about keeping healthy. And then if you have more money, you can do a lot more stuff. So wealth is really our money. We're blessed from above. And again, what does it mean to me? It's enjoying those around us. In my case, I love working. This is my enjoyment. I love the passion. I love the animals at our farm. But I guess the question is, am I enjoying the time I have? No matter what I have, am I being blessed with what I have? We have so much in America compared to overseas. And I can tell you one thing, we need to be thankful every day with what we have.
Yeah, that's very well said, Scott. And I don't think we could do some memorable quotes without at least having one from Mr. Twain. He wrote a lot, and I know that you've written a book as well. You've mentioned it a few times, Scott, Three Blind Mice. And, we could spend a whole show going on the book, but just conceptually, can you kind of just explain the title there, what you mean, and why, given that information, why you've designed your office like you have?
Well, now being in the business for a few weeks now, since 1983, being licensed, and now here it is a couple of years later, you kind of learn a few things. You see, in the early years of my practice, I thought I knew a lot. As my dad would say, the older I get, the smarter my dad becomes. And I can tell you, I can answer that one for sure. The reason I put that together is because when I meet so many people on a daily basis and work with my clients, what I find is, as an advisor, as a fiduciary in this industry, for being licensed for so many years, your definition of conservative is different than John Doe or Susie Q. Your definition of safety is different than, John Doe or Susie Q. So when I think about the Three Blind Mice, almost inevitably, when I ask this very basic question, when the advisor looked at the will, power of attorney, living will, the financial advisor, and when he or she looked at your tax returns on a yearly basis. What did they say? Alex, inevitably, I get this answer. Well, they really never looked at it. Well, they never even spoke about my taxes. Yet finances hit all those areas. Wouldn't you agree? Alex,
Yeah.
when you go get a paycheck, you're getting hit by what? Taxes.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, your wife is asking, where's the money?
Of course.
Well, the tax man got it, right? So the three blind mice they in and of themselves could do a wonderful job. This morning, I had a phone call, and the husband was telling me about his son, a beautiful gentleman, 44 years old. And he said, Scotty, you know what? I fixed my will. I said, you did? He goes, yes. You remember when you kind of yelled at me? I said, I don't yell at anybody. He said, no, you kind of did. I could tell by your eyes and by your body posture, because Alex, his son, in the will and in his investment beneficiaries, his son was the beneficiary. Now, on the surface of this show right now, Alex, you probably don't see a problem. But what I knew is his son had Down syndrome. His son was going to inherit the money. And I encouraged him, please don't let your son inherit the money. Let's open a trust to preserve the assets you and your sweetie built your entire life. And if you pass away, it's going to go to your son. That's fine. But then what's going to happen? Well, we have a different problem. We have him getting off of all the government subsidy that his son well deserved. You got a lot of people getting stuff out there they don't deserve. I'll make that real clear. But his son deserved it. Didn't deserve Down syndrome. His son deserves the money. But why not put it into a trust so it doesn't get evaporated away by the government? And so when I spoke to him, I was so happy that when I spoke to John, I said, John, I'm so glad that you and Alice did that. I'm so glad you took it. Well, you told us to, Scott. I said, well, I didn't really tell you, but I highly encouraged you to. He goes, no, you told us. Now, I'm not a lawyer, Alex. As you know, I have lawyers in our staff, and we have tax people on our, with a moment's throw, I can ask questions. I don't have to be the smartest person or the brightest bulb. I just know who to call. And so when it comes to three blind mice, what I find in my industry, people are not asking really intimate questions, such as in this case, John's child. And what happens if John passes away, his wife, Alice, well, she doesn't know really much about taxes and investments, but she leans on someone who does. And so I'm so thankful they've been clients for so many years, because they didn't have that high touch. Now, that doesn't mean I have to be brilliant on those areas. Heck, I'll call their accountant. I'll call their lawyer. I don't care who they use, but I think that's important to understand. Me as a fiduciary, financial advisor, to look at the whole picture, not just what can I get, but how can I help? And that's where I believe it starts with that first meeting, getting to know the client from day one, understanding what their concerns are, their worries are. And I guarantee when John said to me, Scott, I feel so much better. I said, you got a load off your shoulders, don't you, Johnny? He said, I can't believe it. It just really opened up my eyes how important those documents. I think we did one show, Alex, we talked about the financial drawer, the clutter in the financial drawer, the junk drawer. Well, this junk got cleared out. They have now a game plan, which I encourage, which is why I wrote the book, The Three Blind Mice, how the financial planning process leads your money to a mousetrap. And this is where we want to try to clean up as financial industry, and which is what made me write the book many years ago. And we finally went to publish with Simon Schuster. So it was really a very good thing off my mind. I want people to get their hands on it. So I think that's what's so important.
Absolutely. And Scott, we got about a minute left in today's program. Please take us home, letting people know how they can contact you.
Well, I'd love to. If anybody has any questions, write them down. I think what's important is you write them down at 609-488-4646. You can call after you write them down. Why? Because it's your question, not mine. It's your concern, not mine. The moment you share it with me, it becomes my concern, and I'll do the best I can. And if I can't answer questions, 609-488-4646. I will tell you, I'll do my best to find out where you can get those questions answered. Or if I have to seek out the attorney or the accountant, I will seek those out to get a question that you may have on your mind, because I can tell you it's about your finances and about where it goes, but more importantly, how you feel you want it to be delivered to your families upon the day the Lord calls you home. That's important to me.
This presentation may contain information which has undergone regulatory or other significant change since its original recording.
The information on this program is educational in nature and is not intended to be a recommendation for any specific investment product, strategy, plan, tax, or legal advice. Information presented is believed to be factual and up to date, but we do not guarantee its accuracy. Discussions and answers to questions do not involve the rendering of personalized investment advice and is limited to the dissemination of general information and may not be suitable for members of the listening audience. Communications such as this are not impartial and are provided in connection with advertising and marketing for McLean Advisory Group. Prior to making any investment or financial decisions, an investor should always seek advice from a financial, insurance, legal, or tax professional. McLean Advisory Group and or Scott McLean offer investment advisory and financial planning services through Bell Point Asset Management, LLC.
This radio show is a paid placement.